The cargo bay smelled like rust and recycled air. Wiped the sweat from her forehead and pushed another crate onto the loading platform. Her muscles burned. She had been working for 14 hours straight, but she needed the credits. Life on Station Omega-12 was expensive, and her brother's birthday was coming soon. She was 23 years old, small for a human, barely reaching 160 centimeters. Her black hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and her hands were rough from years of manual labor. But beneath her tired eyes lived something harder, something that had been shaped by 17 years of martial arts training back on Earth. The station was busy tonight. Traders from a dozen species walked through the corridors, their strange languages mixing into a constant hum of noise. Humanity had joined the galactic community only 40 years ago, and they were still considered newcomers. Most aliens looked at humans with a mixture of curiosity and pity. Poor creatures from a death world, they would say. How sad that they evolved on such a terrible planet. Had heard it all before. Earth was classified as a Category 7 death world. The gravity was crushing by galactic standards. The atmosphere contained a corrosive gas called oxygen. The planet was covered in liquid water that could kill most species within minutes. And the wildlife, the aliens could not even comprehend the wildlife. But humans had survived it all. They had crawled out of that hell and reached the stars. Not that anyone seemed impressed. Finished her shift at midnight. She walked through the empty corridors toward her small apartment, her footsteps echoing against the metal floors. The station was quieter now. Most of the traders had returned to their ships. Only the maintenance workers and security guards remained. She did not notice the figures following her until it was too late. The first one grabbed her from behind. A massive hand covered her mouth before she could scream. She felt something sharp press against her neck, a needle of some kind. Her vision blurred. Her legs went weak. The last thing she saw before the darkness took her was a pale face looking down at her. The creature had no eyes, just smooth, white skin where eyes should have been. It smiled with a mouth full of needle-thin teeth. "This one will do nicely," it said. Then everything went black. Woke up in a cage. The first thing she noticed was the smell, blood, and fear, and something chemical she could not identify. The second thing she noticed was that she was not alone. Dozens of other beings surrounded her, all trapped in similar cages. Some were massive, with multiple limbs and armored bodies. Others were small and fragile, trembling in the corners of their prisons. All of them looked terrified. She sat up slowly. Her head was pounding. Her neck burned where the needle had pierced her skin, but she was alive. "Where am I?" she asked. A creature in the next cage turned to look at her. It was covered in blue scales, with 4 arms and a face that reminded her of a lizard. Its voice was deep and tired. "You are on a Pale One ship," it said. "They have taken us for the arena." "Arena?" The creature laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You do not know. The Pale Ones run the greatest entertainment in the galaxy. They take beings from across the stars and make them fight. To the death. Billions watch. Fortunes are won and lost." Felt her stomach drop. She had heard rumors about illegal fighting rings, but she had always thought they were just stories. Horror tales to scare children. "How do we escape?" she asked. The creature shook its head. "We do not escape. No one escapes. The arena exists beyond any government's reach. The Pale Ones have been doing this for 10,000 years. They are very good at what they do." Looked around at the other prisoners. Most of them had given up already. She could see it in their eyes, the acceptance of death. They had surrendered to their fate. But something inside refused to break. She had grown up in a small town outside of Seoul. Her parents had died when she was young, and her brother had raised her alone. They had nothing except each other. Life was hard. Money was tight, but had insisted on one thing: would learn to fight. "The universe is not kind," he had told her when she was 7 years old, standing in front of their local taekwondo studio. "You must learn to be strong." She had trained every day since then. Through broken bones and torn muscles, through exhaustion and doubt, she had trained. By the time she was 16, she was the national junior champion. By 18, she was competing at international levels. Then the money ran out, and she had to choose between training and eating. She chose eating. She took a job on a cargo ship, then transferred to Station Omega 12. Her fighting days were over, she had told herself. She was just a worker now. But the body remembers what the mind tries to forget. Stood up in her cage. Her legs were weak, but she forced them to hold her weight. She began to stretch, working through the movements she had practiced 10,000 times. Her muscles protested, but they obeyed. The blue creature watched her with confusion. "What are you doing?" it asked. "Preparing," said. "Preparing for what?" "Death." Stopped and looked at the creature. Her eyes were calm, steady, not the eyes of someone who had accepted defeat. "No," she said, "survival." The creature stared at her for a long moment. Then it shook its head sadly. "You are from a death world," it said. "I have heard of your planet. They say nothing on Earth dies easily." "They say correctly." The creature almost laughed. "You are small. You have no claws, no armor, no venom. The fighters in the arena will tear you apart in seconds. The betting pools give you no chance at all." Returned to her stretches. Her body was warming up now, remembering old patterns. "On Earth," she said quietly, "we have a saying. It is not the size of the fighter that matters. It is the size of the fight in the fighter." The creature did not respond. It simply watched as this small human girl, alone and far from home, prepared herself for war. In the distance could hear the roar of a crowd. The arena was close. Her first match was coming. She closed her eyes and thought of her brother. She thought of Soul. She thought of her grandmother's hands teaching her how to bow properly before a fight. Then she opened her eyes and waited. The pale ones thought they had captured a victim. They had studied Earth's monsters, its disasters, its diseases. They knew everything about the death world called Earth. But they knew nothing about its people. They were about to learn. The guards came for her on the third day. They were pale ones, like the creatures who had taken her from the station. Tall and thin, with skin like white paper and mouths full of sharp teeth. They moved without sound, their eyeless faces turning toward her as they approached her cage. "Human female," one of them said. Its voice was flat without emotion. "You fight today." Stood, she had barely slept since arriving. She had barely eaten. The food they gave the prisoners was gray and tasteless, and she did not trust it, but she had trained through worse conditions. Her body was ready. The guards opened her cage and placed heavy metal cuffs on her wrists. They led her through long corridors filled with the sounds of screaming and cheering. The arena was alive with noise. Billions of credits changed hands every day in this place. The blood of innocents had become entertainment. They stopped at a large metal door. Through it, could hear the roar of the crowd, millions of voices blending into a single wave of sound. "You will fight the crawler," the guard said. "It has won 37 matches. You will die quickly if you are lucky, slowly if you are not." Said nothing. The guard tilted its head, studying her. "You are not afraid." "I am afraid," said honestly, "but fear does not stop me." The guard made a sound that might have been laughter. Then the door opened and walked into the arena. The light was blinding. The arena was massive, a circular pit of sand and stone surrounded by walls too high to climb. Above those walls, thousands of seats rose toward the sky, filled with creatures from across the galaxy. Screens floated in the air, broadcasting her face to billions more watching from distant worlds. And across the arena, the crawler waited. It was a nightmare given flesh. 8 limbs, each ending in a curved blade. A body covered in black armor that gleamed under the lights. Eyes, dozens of them, that tracked her every movement. It was 3 meters tall and weighed at least 400 kilograms. Built for killing. Designed for war. The crowd roared with excitement. On the screens, betting numbers flashed. The odds were displayed for everyone to see. Crawler 1.01, human 847. No one believed she would survive. A voice echoed across the arena, the announcer, speaking in a language that's translator chip converted to Korean. Ladies and of the galaxy, welcome to tonight's opening match. In the blue corner, we have the Crawler, champion of 37 battles, the terror of Sector 9. And in the red corner, a new addition to our collection, a female specimen from the death world known as Earth. The crowd laughed, actually laughed. To them this was comedy, a warm-up before the real fights began. They expected her to die screaming. Walked to the center of the arena. The sand crunched beneath her bare feet. They had taken her shoes, her clothes, everything except a simple gray uniform. She had no weapons, no armor, nothing but her body and her training. She bowed, not to the crowd, not to her opponent. She bowed to herself the way her grandmother had taught her, a sign of respect for the fight to come. The crawler charged. It moved faster than anything that size should be able to move. Its bladed limbs tore through the air, aiming for her chest, her throat, her face. The crowd screamed with bloodlust. Did not try to block. She did not try to fight strength with strength. Instead, she did something that confused everyone watching. She stepped to the side. The crawler's blade missed her by centimeters. Its momentum carried it forward, off balance for just a moment, and in that moment moved. She did not punch. Punching that armor would break her hand. Instead, she targeted the joints, the soft places where the armor plates connected. Her elbow struck the back of its lowest knee with precision that came from 17 years of practice. The leg buckled. The crawler stumbled. Surprise flickered across its many eyes. This had never happened before. No opponent had ever made it stumble. The crowd went silent. Did not wait. She was already moving, circling, looking for the next weakness. The crawler recovered and swung again, but she was not there. She was behind it, then beside it, then somewhere else entirely. She fought like water flowing around the attacks instead of meeting them head-on. On Earth, this was called footwork. The ability to control distance and angle. The ability to be where your opponent did not expect. It was the foundation of every martial art and had mastered it before she was 12 years old. The crawler grew frustrated. It attacked faster, harder, burning through its energy reserves. Each miss made it angrier. Each stumble made it sloppier. It was a creature designed to overwhelm opponents with power and speed. It had never learned patience. Had learned patience in a cold gym in Seoul, practicing the same kick 10,000 times until it was perfect. 3 minutes into the fight, she saw her opening. The crawler lunged with all 8 limbs at once, a killing blow meant to end the match. But it had. Its center of gravity was wrong. Its eyes were focused on where she had been, not where she was going. Dropped low and spun. Her heel connected with the side of its head, not the armored part, but the small gap near the base of its skull where the nervous system connected. A strike that required perfect timing and perfect accuracy. She had practiced it 1,000,000 times. The crawler's eyes went blank. Its limbs stopped moving. For one eternal second it hung in the air, suspended between life and death. Then it fell. The arena was silent. Completely, utterly silent. Billions of beings across the galaxy stared at their screens in disbelief. Stood over her fallen opponent, breathing hard. Blood ran down her arm from a wound she had not noticed. Her legs were shaking, but she was alive. The announcer's voice cracked as it spoke. Time of victory, 43 seconds. Winner, the human. Still, no one cheered. No one moved. They were trying to understand what they had just witnessed. This was not supposed to happen. The human was supposed to die. She was small. She was weak. She was nothing. But she had won. Slowly, a sound began to build. Not cheering, something else. A low murmur of shock and confusion, and underneath it all, something that might have been fear. Looked up at the crowd, at the floating screens showing her face across the galaxy, at the betting numbers that were now flashing error messages because the odds had been so wrong. She did not smile, she did not celebrate, she simply bowed again the way her grandmother had taught her. Then she turned and walked back toward the metal door. Behind her, the crawler's body was being dragged away. The creature was not dead, it would recover in a few weeks, but its reputation was destroyed. It had been defeated by a human, a small human female with no weapons and no armor. The pale ones watched from their viewing boxes high above the arena. They did not speak, but their eyeless faces turned toward each other in silent communication. Something had changed. They had expected entertainment. They had expected an easy kill. Instead, they had seen something that made them very, very uncomfortable. They had seen what a death world could produce when it was cornered. And in the holding cells below, the other prisoners had watched the fight on the small screens mounted in their cages. The blue-scaled creature who had spoken to sat in stunned silence. "Impossible," it whispered. "That should have been impossible." But it had happened, and somewhere deep inside, in a place that had forgotten what hope felt like, something began to stir. The human had won. Maybe, just maybe, survival was possible after all. 17 matches, had survived 17 matches. The first victory had been shocking, the second had been dismissed as luck. By the fifth, the galaxy had started paying attention. By the 10th, her face was known on 1,000 worlds. By the 17th, she had become something more than a fighter. She had become a legend. The pale ones did not understand. They threw bigger opponents at her, faster opponents, deadlier opponents. They gave her enemies with poison claws and acid blood and bodies made of living metal. Each time, they expected her to fall. Each time, she found a way to survive. Her methods confused them. She did not fight like their champions. She did not try to overpower her enemies or outlast them through superior strength. Instead, she studied them. She watched their movements, learned their patterns, found their weaknesses. Then she exploited those weaknesses with surgical precision. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. Across the stars, her fights were broadcast to billions. At first, people watched because they expected her to die. Death world creatures were supposed to be entertaining victims, nothing more. But as the victories mounted, something changed. People stopped watching for her death. They started watching because they could not look away. On Earth, the broadcasts had a different effect. Was working in his laboratory on the diplomatic vessel Harmony when he first saw the footage. He was studying alien species to help humanity better understand their new galactic neighbors. He had not heard from his sister in weeks. He assumed she was busy with work. Then he saw her face on a news screen. The blood drained from his face. His hands started shaking. He watched as his little sister, the girl he had raised since she was 5 years old, walked into an arena and fought a creature twice her size. He watched her win. He watched her bow. And then he started making calls. Within hours, the footage was spreading across human networks. Within days, it had reached every corner of human space. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Became a symbol, not just of survival but of defiance. Here was a human, alone and far from home, refusing to die, refusing to give up. The galaxy might see them as primitives from a death world, but this woman was showing them something else. She was showing them what humanity was made of. Protests erupted outside alien embassies. Demands for action flooded government offices. The phrase, "bring home," appeared on signs and shirts and social media posts. Musicians wrote songs about her. Artists painted her image on walls. Children played games where they pretended to be her, fighting imaginary monsters in their backyards. And in the arena, had no idea any of this was happening. Her world had shrunk to the size of a cage. She trained every day, pushing her body beyond its limits. She ate whatever food they gave her. She slept on a thin mat on the cold floor. Between fights, she talked to the other prisoners, learning their names, their stories, their fears. The blue-scaled creature was named. He was a merchant who had been taken from his ship while traveling through neutral space. He had a family waiting for him on a moon called Verdant, and he spoke about them constantly. A wife who loved to garden. 2 children who were probably wondering where their father had gone. "You have given us hope," told her one night. "Before you came, we had accepted death. Now we dream of escape." "Escape is not enough," said. "We need to survive long enough for someone to find us." "No one will find us. The Pale Ones have hidden this place for thousands of years." Shook her head. "You do not know humans. When we want something, we do not stop until we get it. My brother is out there. He will be looking for me." Made a sound that might have been a sigh. "You have great faith in your kind." "I have faith in my brother." Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, that faith was being rewarded. Had been best friends since childhood. They had grown up together, trained together, dreamed together. When left Earth for the cargo stations, had become a medic and followed her into space. They had lost touch over the years, but they had never stopped being friends. When saw the broadcasts, she did not cry. She did not panic. She simply started working. She had contacts in the underground, people who traded information outside official channels. Within weeks, she had learned more about the Pale Ones than any human government had discovered in 40 years. She learned about their ships, their routes, their habits. She learned about the arena and its location. And she shared everything with. The siblings had never met before, but they became partners overnight. Had the scientific knowledge to understand what they were dealing with. Had the street connections to gather intelligence. Together, they began building something new. A rescue plan. It was impossible, of course. The arena existed in a region of space no human vessel had ever reached. The Pale Ones had technology that made human ships look like toys. Even if they could find the exact location, they had no way to get there. But impossible was just a word, and humans had a long history of doing impossible things. Back in the arena, the 18th fight was approaching. She had noticed a change in the Pale Ones' behavior. They were no longer amused by her victories. The betting markets had been disrupted. The other prisoners were becoming harder to control. Whispers of rebellion were spreading through the holding cells. She had become a problem. The night before her fight, a guard came to her cage. It was not there to take her to the arena, not yet. It simply stood outside the bars and studied her with its eyeless face. "You have caused us great difficulty," it said. Did not respond. "We have run the arena for 10,000 years. We have collected specimens from every death world in the galaxy. None have done what you have done. Maybe you were collecting the wrong specimens." The guard tilted its head. "We studied your planet. We studied its monsters, its disasters, its diseases. We thought we understood what a death world could produce." "You studied the wrong things." "What should we have studied?" Stood and walked to the bars of her cage. She was close enough to touch the guard, but she kept her hands at her sides. "On Earth," she said quietly, "the most dangerous creature is not the largest or the fastest or the strongest. It is not the one with the sharpest teeth or the deadliest venom." "Then what is it?" Looked directly at where the guard's eyes should have been. "It is the one that refuses to give up." The guard was silent for a long moment. Then it turned and walked away without another word. But had seen something in its posture, something she had never seen from a Pale One before. Uncertainty. She returned to her mat and lay down. Tomorrow would bring another fight, another test. She did not know if she would survive. She did not know if rescue was coming. She did not know anything except one simple truth. She would not stop fighting until her heart stopped beating. And somewhere in the darkness of space, Her brother was working through the night, getting closer to finding her with every passing hour. The legend was growing, and the Pale Ones were beginning to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. High Arbiter had ruled the arena for 300 years. He had watched millions of creatures fight and die on the sand below. He had built an empire of blood and entertainment that spanned 1,000 star systems. Nothing surprised him anymore. Until the human. He stood in his private chamber, watching the recordings of her fights for the 100th time. His pale fingers moved across the controls, slowing the footage, zooming in on her movements. He was trying to understand something that should have been impossible. She was small, she was weak. By every measurement, she should have died in her first match. But here she was, 17 victories later, still breathing. "The betting markets are in chaos," said his assistant, a smaller pale one who stood nervously by the door. "We have lost billions in credits. The other prisoners are becoming difficult to control. 3 attempted escapes this week alone. Did not turn around. She has given them hope." "Yes, High Arbiter, the humans' victories have inspired them." "Hope is dangerous," finally turned from the screens. His eyeless face was impossible to read, but his voice carried an edge of anger. "Hope makes beings believe they can change their fate. We cannot allow this to continue." "What do you suggest?" Was silent for a long moment. Then he made a decision that would change everything. "Announce a special event," he said. "The human will face the Harvester." His assistant went still. "The Harvester, but High Arbiter, no one has ever." "I know. The Harvester has killed over 300 opponents. It has never lost a match. The human has no chance." "That is the point." Walked to the window of his chamber and looked down at the arena below. "We need to show the galaxy what happens to those who defy us. We need to crush this hope before it spreads any further." "When should we schedule the match?" 3 days from now. That will give us time to promote it properly. I want every screen in the galaxy showing this fight. I want the universe to watch this human die." The announcement spread like fire. Within hours, it was the only thing anyone was talking about. The Harvester versus the human, death versus hope. The odds were released. Harvester 1.001, human 2,450. No one gave her any chance at all. In the holding cells, received the news from. "They are going to kill you," he said, his voice breaking. "The Harvester is not like the others. It does not just win, it destroys. It takes its time. It makes its opponents suffer." Sat cross-legged on the floor of her cage, her eyes closed. She had been meditating, trying to find the calm place inside herself that her training had created. "Tell me about it," she said quietly. "It was created in a laboratory, a perfect killing machine, armored skin that cannot be pierced, strength that can tear metal apart, speed that should be impossible for something so large, and intelligence. It is smart. It learns during the fight. It adapts. No one has lasted more than 2 minutes against it." "How does it kill?" Hesitated. "It does not kill quickly. It plays with its food. It wounds its opponents first, then waits for them to bleed. It enjoys their fear." Opened her eyes. There was no fear in them, only calculation. "Then it has a weakness." "What weakness? It is perfect." "Nothing is perfect." Stood and began to stretch. "A creature that enjoys causing fear relies on that fear. It expects its opponents to panic. It expects them to run. It has probably never faced someone who does not fear death." Stared at her. "You do not fear death." "I fear many things, but death is not one of them. Death is just the end. What I fear is giving up. What I fear is dying without trying." She moved through her stretching routine, her body responding to patterns it knew better than anything else. Around her, the other prisoners watched in silence. Word had spread through the cells. Everyone knew what was coming. The night before the fight, a strange thing happened. One by one, the prisoners began to approach Cage. They could not touch her through the bars, but they stood close. Some spoke words of encouragement, others simply nodded. A few wept. Was the last to come? I have been thinking about what you said, he told her. About humans, about not giving up. And my people have a saying, the river does not stop because of the rock, it finds a way around. He pressed his scaled hand against the bars. You are the river. Whatever happens tomorrow, you have already won. You have shown us that survival is possible. That hope is worth fighting for. Placed her hand against his through the bars. Survive, she said. Whatever happens to me, survive. Tell your children about this place. Tell them what you saw. Make sure no one ever forgets. I will. After left sat alone in her cage. The arena was quiet now. Tomorrow would bring noise and blood and the very real possibility of death, but tonight was peaceful. She thought about her brother. She wondered if he was looking for her. She wondered if he knew she was still alive. She decided to record a message. The prisoners had smuggled in a small device months ago, a simple recorder that the guards had never found. It was meant for final words, for goodbyes that would never be delivered. Had never used it before. Tonight she did. She said quietly, speaking into the device, if you ever hear this, I want you to know that I am okay. Not physically, I am tired and hurt and probably about to die. But inside, where it matters, I am okay. She paused, gathering her thoughts. Do you remember when I was 7 and you took me to the Taekwondo studio for the first time? I was scared. The other kids were bigger than me, stronger. I told you I could not do it. A small smile crossed her face. You told me something that day. You said, the universe is not kind. You must learn to be strong. I have carried those words with me every day since then. Through every match, every fight, every moment when I wanted to give up. She took a deep breath. Tomorrow I will fight something that cannot be beaten. The odds say I will die. Maybe they are right, but I will not go quietly. I will not beg. I will not give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. Her voice grew stronger. I am not special. I am just someone from Earth. And on Earth we learned something a long time ago. When you corner something that comes from a death world, you do not get submission. You get teeth. She turned off the recorder and placed it carefully in a crack in the wall. If she died tomorrow, maybe someone would find it. Maybe her words would reach her brother. Maybe they would not. Either way, she had said what she needed to say. She lay down on her mat and closed her eyes. Sleep came slowly, but it came. And in her dreams, she was back in Seoul, in the old gym with the cracked mirrors and the worn mats. Her grandmother was there, adjusting her stance, correcting her form. Remember, her grandmother said, the strongest fighters are not the ones who never fall. They are the ones who always get back up. Nodded. I remember. When she woke, the guards were coming. It was time. The arena was full. Every seat was taken. Every screen in the galaxy was broadcasting. Billions of beings across 1,000 worlds had stopped what they were doing to watch this moment. Markets had closed. Ships had pulled out of hyperspace. Even wars had paused. Everyone wanted to see the human die. Walked through the metal door and into the light. The roar of the crowd hit her like a physical force. She had experienced it 17 times before, but this was different. This was louder, hungrier. The universe wanted blood. She walked to the center of the arena and stood on the sand. Her feet were bare. Her body was covered in scars from her previous fights. She was thinner than she had been when she arrived, but there was something in her eyes that had not been there before. Fire. Across the arena, a massive gate began to open. The crowd went silent. Even the most bloodthirsty spectators felt a chill run through them. The harvester emerged. It was unlike anything had faced before. 3 meters tall, with a body that seemed to be made of darkness itself. Its skin was black and smooth, absorbing light instead of reflecting it. Its arms were long and ended in claws that looked like curved swords. Its head had no face, just a smooth dome with a single red eye that tracked her every movement. The creature did not walk. It glided, moving across the sand with a grace that was almost beautiful. Behind it, the ground was marked with grooves from its claws. The announcer's voice was shaking as it spoke. Ladies and of the galaxy, the moment you have been waiting for. The Harvester, undefeated champion of 300 battles, the angel of death, the end of all hope. And facing it, the human female who has all expectations. Tonight, we witness the end of a legend. The crowd roared. High Arbiter watched from his private box, satisfaction spreading across his pale face. This would be perfect. The human would suffer, the prisoners would lose hope, and order would be restored. Everything would return to normal. Below looked at the Harvester. She studied its movements, its posture, the way it shifted its weight. She had 2 minutes at most before it would kill her, 2 minutes to find a weakness. She bowed not to the crowd, not to her opponent, to herself. The Harvester charged. It was faster than anything she had ever seen. One moment it was across the arena. The next it was in front of her, its claw sweeping toward her chest. She barely managed to dodge, feeling the wind of the strike as it passed centimeters from her skin. She rolled and came up running. The Harvester followed, each strike coming faster than the last. It was not trying to kill her yet, it was testing her, learning her patterns. Just like it said, it was intelligent. But so was she. Let it chase her, she let it think it was winning. All the while she was watching, studying, looking for the flaw that had to exist. The Harvester cornered her against the arena wall. Its claw shot toward her head. She ducked and the claw buried itself in the stone, stuck for just a moment. There. The joints. When the Harvester struck at full power, its arm locked for a fraction of a second. A tiny window, a tiny weakness. It was enough. She went on the offensive. The crowd gasped as the human stopped running and started attacking. She was not trying to hurt the Harvester, that was impossible. She was trying to make it angry. She struck at its arms, its legs, its head. Each blow did nothing, but each blow was an insult. The Harvester roared. It was a sound that shook the arena, that made beings in the stands cover their ears. It stopped playing. Now it wanted her dead. Good. It attacked with everything it had. Its claws became a blur of motion. Its movements grew faster and more vicious. It was burning through its energy, driven by rage and wounded pride. Was counting. Strike, dodge, dodge. Each time it swung, she was already moving. Each time it lunged, she was somewhere else. Her legs were screaming. Her lungs were burning. She had cuts on her arms and chest from near misses. But she was alive. And she was learning. The pattern emerged after 40 strikes. The Harvester always led with its right claw. It always stepped forward with its left leg. And after every fourth combination, there was a pause. A fraction of a second where its weight was perfectly balanced. That was her moment. She waited, she dodged, she let it think it was winning. The clock in her head counted down, 4 more combinations, 3, 2, 1. The Harvester launched its final attack. Its right claw swept toward her head. Its left leg stepped forward. Its weight shifted. And was already moving. She dropped low, under the sweep of its claw. She planted her hands on the sand, and she kicked upward with every ounce of strength she had left. Her heel connected with the bottom of its jaw. The impact was not enough to hurt it, but it was enough to knock its head back, enough to make it stumble, enough to break its balance for 1 precious second. Did not hesitate. She leaped onto its back. Her hands found the gap between its head and its neck, the one place where the armor was thin. Her fingers dug in. She squeezed. The Harvester thrashed. It spun. It slammed itself against the arena wall trying to crush her, but held on. Her arms were wrapped around its throat. Her legs were locked around its torso. She was not letting go. The creature could not breathe. For 30 seconds they struggled. The harvester grew weaker with each passing moment. Its movements became sluggish. Its single red eye flickered. Then it fell. The harvester collapsed onto the sand, its body going still, released her grip and rolled away, landing on her back. She could not move. She could barely breathe. Everything hurt. But she was alive. The arena was silent, completely silent. Billions of beings across the galaxy stared at their screens, unable to process what they had just witnessed. The human had won. Slowly pushed herself to her feet. Blood ran down her face. Her left arm hung at a strange angle, broken probably, but she stood. She looked up at the crowd, at High Arbiter in his private box, at the floating screens showing her face across the universe. And she bowed. The silence broke, but it was not cheering that filled the arena. It was something else, something quieter, something that sounded almost like awe. On 1,000 worlds, beings who had dismissed humanity as primitive apes began to reconsider. They had seen a young woman face impossible odds and refuse to die. They had seen what a death world could produce when it was pushed to its limits. They remembered why their ancestors had called Earth a death world in the first place. Not because of its monsters, because of its people. 3 weeks later, a human fleet arrived at the edge of Pale 1 space. It was not a military armada. It was cargo ships, medical vessels, diplomatic shuttles. Thousands of them stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, watching the Pale 1 station on the. Beside him was coordinating with their contacts inside. "They are responding to our hail," an officer reported. Nodded, "Put them through." High Arbiter's image appeared on the screen. He looked different now, smaller, less certain. "You cannot be here," he said. "This space is ours. You have no claim." "We are here for our people," interrupted. "All of them. The humans you took, the others as well, every prisoner in your arena. You dare make demands. We could destroy your fleet with a thought." Smiled. It was not a kind smile. "You could, but you will not." "And why is that?" "Because you watched the broadcasts. You saw what one human did when she was alone and afraid and facing death. Now imagine what happens when you make all of us feel that way." He leaned forward. "We do not forget, we do not forgive, and we do not stop, ever. You can kill us, but more will come, and more after that, until there is nothing left of your arena but dust and memory." Was silent for a long moment. His pale face was impossible to read. Then he nodded. "You will have your people, all of them, leave our space and never return." The prisoners were released within the hour. Walked off the transport ship and onto the deck of her brother's vessel. She was thin and exhausted, but she was alive. Was waiting for her. They did not speak. They did not need to. He simply wrapped his arms around her and held her tight, the way he had held her when she was a frightened little girl who had just lost her parents. "I told you," she whispered. "I told them you would come. I will always come for you." Behind them, the other prisoners were reuniting with their families. Was there, holding his wife and children, tears streaming down his scaled face. The blue-scaled merchant who had thought escape was impossible was going home. And across the galaxy, the classification of Earth was quietly updated in 1,000 different databases. No longer primitive death world. Now do not provoke. Was offered medals and interviews and book deals. She refused them all. She just wanted to go home. She just wanted to see Seoul again, to walk through the old streets and visit her grandmother's grave. When a reporter finally cornered her and asked why she had refused everything, why she had not capitalized on her fame, just shrugged. "I did not fight for glory," she said. "I fought because I did not know how to stop. That is what humans do. We get knocked down and we get back up, again and again until our hearts stop beating." She smiled a tired, genuine smile. I just wanted to see my brother again. Everything else was just stubbornness. The reporter stared at her, searching for something deeper, some profound wisdom from the woman who had changed the galaxy. But there was nothing else. Just a young woman from Earth who had refused to give up. And in the end, that was enough. On a distant space station, in a bar filled with species from across the galaxy, a group of traders watched interview on the news screen. One of them, a large creature with 4 arms and purple skin, shook its head in disbelief. "Humans," it muttered, "why did we ever think they were harmless?" Its companion, a smaller being with 3 eyes, took a long drink from its glass. "Because we only studied their planet, we never studied them." The first creature grunted, "Well, we know now." "Yes." The smaller being looked at the screen, at the tired human woman who had brought the galaxy to its knees through sheer stubbornness. "We know now." And across the stars, in ships and stations and planets beyond counting, other beings were having the same conversation, the same realization. Earth was a death world. But the deadliest thing on it was not the gravity, or the oxygen, or the wildlife. It was the humans. And now, the galaxy would never forget it.